Oh, we got a little party. Oh, what they don't know is we had like at least 4 people dancing with us.
Right? Hello,
Yes.
hello, hello, my friend. How are
Hello, beautiful.
you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's the first day of Women's History Month. I'm super excited to be recording.
Right?
Yes. How are
Good
you doing?
timing.
Right?
Good timing. March 1st,
Mhm.
episode 105.
Yes.
Right? Delighted to be with you. I
Yeah.
really am just counting my gratitudes and my blessings today. And, here in Georgia, where you and I are at, it is practically spring.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And
Yeah.
my daffodils are pushing up and
Yeah.
just stunning. I was trying to remember because I know we talked about it on the show. I
Mm.
can't remember if it was last year or the year before that I went to Gibbs Garden, that
I think it
natural
was the year
garden.
before. It's been a while since you brought it up.
Yeah, I can't remember, but
Mm.
I came home with extra daffodils,
Mm.
which it was the end of the season. I didn't know if they'd bloom,
Okay.
but I'm a sucker for those bags at the
Yeah.
arboretums that they're
Okay.
like, this supports our whatever sign me up, right? And I
Right.
planted probably 50 daffodils that year because
Okay.
I started this crazy flower project during the pandemic. So I
Mhm.
came home, put them in the ground, thinking they may come up, they may not, because it was late in the season. Are they
Yeah.
good? But they are just coming up in their little cheery clumps, and they're just
Mm.
happy and beautiful. And I know I'm
I
really
can't wait to
showing
see him on
message
Friday.
at this moment right now. I am turning into my mother and my father in front of you, my friend. It is happening right
It's
here on the
hilarious.
podcast.
Hey, and I love it. I think about your family being farmers and my dad
Mhm.
doing lawns and stuff. I was talking to the high schoolers about always being outside in somebody's lawn. And so I hear you, and that's what we're here
Right?
for, the different passions and stuff that we like to enjoy. So,
Right?
no
Spring just
judgment.
brings it out in me.
Yeah, my birthday's coming up, so I love
Right?
spring.
Right? Should we
Yes.
do our official introduction and kick this show
Yes.
off?
Yes, yes,
Let's
let's
do
do
it.
it. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and author, the founder of Shalo Glow, an all natural handmade personal products company that helps you glow from head to toe. I am a champion for your self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, Amazon bestselling author with my co host,
Yes.
and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week with special guests for
Yeah.
weekly intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. How do we do
So
this?
big, especially with
Right?
what we're talking about today. I can't wait to talk more about financial wellness. And when I think about women's history and where we are, I don't want people to feel bad for where they are, right? Okay, you don't know. That's a big step, right? You have to know what you don't know. But after that, let's get connected. So I'm looking forward to everything we're doing this year. We've talked about the other conference, we've talked about the second volume, and I know that I need to continue to learn more in financial wellness. So I'm super
Right?
excited about the guests that we have today.
Absolutely. I was on social media earlier, as we often are, as we prep for a
Right.
show, and
Right.
a lot of things that were popping up, I was seeing from people, whether it was from their newsletters or on their social media, was about how's that New Year's resolution working for you? How's
Yeah.
this or that, right? Because we're at
Right.
March 1st. And I think it's a good time to take a deep breath and check in and see, like, how is our financial wellness?
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
it going? What do we need? And
Right.
to your point, we don't know what we don't know. I mean,
Right.
we've said on the show multiple times. What was it? 1965 when
That
women could get a credit card by themselves.
I think it was in the 70s.
70s.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And later than that, right? In our
Right.
lifetime, in my
Right.
lifetime, which
Yeah.
is not a big deal because I'm
Right.
much older than you, but
Mhm. Not much. Here we go. But I hear you, and that's the interesting thing, you know.
Right?
We were on not Women Connected. We were on Manifestation Mondays this week, and one of the ladies said, first generation integrated. And I had never thought about it like that. You know, so when you talk about finances, you're the first generation, you're the first female generation integrated into credit and all this stuff, you know. So
Right?
when we talk about business credit and even partnerships, we're about to work on all of our paperwork for the businesses that we have. It can feel daunting, but thankfully we have tools and resources and access to things now, you know. So it's just one step at a time.
And we have women that can help us, right?
Yeah.
Or support us. You know, I
Mhm.
wrote in the women in the our first volume, our first
Yes.
Connected in Wisdom book, Stories and Resources Rooted in the Eight Dimensions of Wellness. I wrote the chapter on financial wellness, which it still cracks me up. It makes me laugh every time. But, you know, I was one of the lead authors and we needed a chapter on that. So I'm like, all right. And so I
Mhm.
really did a lot of research and went back to basics. I
Yeah.
also laugh because I always think we teach what we need to know, right?
Yeah.
And I learn by teaching it or by researching it or things like that because I think this dimension of wellness is the one I always kind of circle back around to and check in
Yeah.
as
Me too.
I feel like I still have so much more to learn.
And I think that that's genuinely all of them. You know, we're always a
Hmm.
student and we're always a teacher. So you can get to a certain level of knowing something, but then the context will change. And now that piece of
Right?
information might be out of date. Even the IRS, you know, accountants, they update their rules and laws that they abide by. So
Right?
think something might have been one way last year. And then this year, like I think the food and beverage, if you go out to eat, it's 100% tax write-off this year. That's different than last year. You know what I mean? As long as you're
They're trying
talking
to get
about
us
your
out of our
business.
COVID houses.
Hey, hey, but it'll work. I'll take the write-off, you know? So it's just the ebbs and flows. And you know
Right?
what I think about every time you say that, Christine, I think you're going to look back on your young self now and you're going to laugh at how you felt like you weren't the financial expert when we
Right?
continue to grow the
Right?
businesses and everything. I think you'll
Be
get
fun.
there. Yeah.
I
Yeah. Cause
think so too.
I've seen your growth in the 2 years that we've been doing this
Woo, woo.
podcast. So
I
I
love
think,
it.
yeah, I think you'll
That's what
get
it's
there.
about, right? Is
Yeah.
growing and going. And, you know, one of my friends said, I didn't even know you knew that much about financial wellness. I'm like, well, you know, I'm studying. That's
Yep.
the thing. Should we tell our listeners what definition we're working off of and get our
Absolutely.
guest up here so we can dive into this conversation?
Let's do it. So, financial wellness is an intentional approach to your relationship with money as a tool. It includes stability with current finances, increasing positive financial behaviors like budgeting, reducing debt, saving, and investing. Financial wellness incorporates knowledge and skills that helps to change behavior, reduce financial stress, and creation of a strategic financial plan to reach desired financial goals.
Right?
Yes.
So fun. I
Hmm.
mean, used to the old me wouldn't have thought it was fun to even
Right.
hear that definition, but it really is fun. And our next guest, y'all, is ridiculously fun, and I can't wait to introduce her. So if you're ready, Shannon, I'm going to go ahead and read her bio and let's get her
Yes.
up here on stage because
Absolutely.
this is going to be much more fun having her up here. Here we go. Sarah Walton is a success coach and business mentor who's been featured on The Today Show, speaks at women's conferences all over the world, and has helped hundreds of women start and grow businesses they love. Originally from Salt Lake City, Sarah spent her 15-year corporate career in New York City, navigating the male dominated world of tech, managing a P&L worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and working closely with Marianne Williamson, mentoring dozens of women and balancing motherhood at the same time. So she is an expert that knows how to do this, y'all. She's the voice behind the Game On Girlfriend podcast, and she's known for her live Coffee with Coach streaming video conversations and weekly Sarah Uncut videos. She offers comprehensive online courses, including the Game On Girlfriend project and the Sales Mastermind. She also runs her exclusive Abundance Academy for women in business. Sarah has become the go to source of inspiration, no nonsense teaching, and practical integration for women in business. She's created a successful business and now speaks across the nation, offering her courses and workshops, which are designed to put more money in the hands of more women. We are delighted to welcome Sarah Walton to our
Yes.
stage. Woohoo!
Hello, party people.
Hello, beautiful.
Welcome.
Hello. I have to say, can I just jump right in and tell you guys?
Yes.
I'm listening to you talk about warm weather, and I was like crying.
No.
I'm in New Jersey. I'm just outside
Oh,
of New York
Mm,
City, and I spent 2 hours shoveling snow this very day.
mm.
I'm so done. You
oh,
guys are like daffodils. I'm like, I'll be right over.
right.
Right
Come
over.
on. Come on. This is when you need to
Yes.
pull a port, right?
Mhm.
Right? I
Oh,
was in Oakland a week ago, and right when I was leaving, I was there out at Interplace, which is what we call the mothership of Interplay, and I was out there for an in-person gathering.
Yeah.
And right when I was going to the airport was when that storm blew in.
oh yeah.
And literally it got cold. I was like, wait, what's happening here in Oakland? And as I was going on the tram was weaving back and forth. And then we had a little bit of a flight delay due to wind. And everybody I've talked to in Oakland has kind of said the same thing as you. They're like, I'm cold. And then I went to Boulder, and I got to Boulder, and it was -8 degrees.
I
Stop
did
it
not
right
know
now.
that.
It was, yeah, when I was in Boulder last week, it was -8 degrees and snowing.
It's just
And
Mhm.
I
not
was like,
okay.
it's beautiful. But then I came home to daffodils. That's
Mhm.
that progression of that trip. And I
Yep.
was like, what is happening? And grateful to be home and seeing the really shiny faces of my daffodils.
Yeah.
Love it. Freezing. Yes.
So, Sarah, you are a money expert.
Yes.
Sure. Maybe. Is anyone really a money expert? Sorry, I'm being funny. But it's like, come on, man. And so I loved listening to what you guys were saying. And Shannon, I thought you made so many good points. I did not know, by the way, about the restaurants being complete right off. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I will be
absolutely.
eating out a little bit more of some people I love.
Right?
Um, yeah, I think here's the deal is your definition of financial wellness, I think, is everything, right? So if you
Thank
want to
you.
be an expert at anything, you kind of have to get messy with it, right? Like I don't
Mhm.
want an expert surgeon who hasn't made mistakes, right?
Right.
And figured it out and been like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? We got to fix it. Like that's kind of the person you want. And I think the only way to be an expert at anything is to dive in head first. And the way that you guys defined, financial wellness is the intentional focus on the relationship to money. I could not agree more.
Thank you.
And I mean, that is just gorgeous. And I think I was just teaching today in one of my classes this idea that we are so handed our relationship to money, right? It's just handed. It's handed down by what we see when we're little. It's handed down by how we watch other people treat it. It's handed down by conversations we weren't even a part of, right? It just gets, and like, we just keep taking it like, oh, okay, I guess that's what's so. Well, it says who? And even if that is what's so right now, is that how you want it to stay? And I don't think we have that conversation enough.
I agree with you.
Mm,
We have had it on the show multiple times when we talk about financial wellness, about like the stories we have about money and
mm,
Yeah.
where they came from. And, like you said, they came from when we were little bitty, and we heard it and even didn't realize we heard it. What I want to know, Sarah, is how do we break them? And oh, I also want to know, we titled the show, Are You a High Functioning Codependent? And
Yes.
the three myths about money that are keeping you broke. So we got to get to those three myths.
Mhm.
okay. Well, I mean, that really is how we break it is we start talking about the air we've been breathing, right? So there's that old, and I forget who said this first, so forgive me because I always try to give credit where credit is due, especially amongst the coaching industry where everybody just takes everything and pretends that they made it up. I try not to do that. Um, but this idea that a fish doesn't know what water is. Have you ever heard that conversation, right? Because you're just swimming
Yes.
in it all the time. And if you were to stop a fish and go, hey, what do you think about the water? They'd be like, the who? The what? Huh? Because it's just a constant presence. And I think that's how we interact with these social myths. It's just a constant presence. So one of the ways we break through anything is to distinguish it, right? Is to understand we are separate from the water. We are separate from this conversation that's been handed to us. Just because we've been swimming in it doesn't mean we are it. And that is challenging because it doesn't feel that way at first, right? It's like, no, but that's the way it is, which is, by the way, one of the myths, right? It's like that, but that's the way it is. And that's not accurate. That's the way it's been designed,
Mm-hmm.
mostly by white men, right? And so
Yep.
what we want to understand from that is it's been designed by the people it benefits. Okay, so that's something to know, right? And as soon as you start to kind of break it down, I love what you guys were saying. And yes, women were not allowed to have credit cards or have their own mortgage until 1975. It was not okay to do,
75.
actually, I'm sorry, it was 1976. I apologize.
Okay.
Until 1976, you had to have a man sign that. And, there are other ways that we've treated other human beings, not as human beings, right? And we need to
Right.
start talking about that. We need to start cleaning that up. And we need to start understanding the impact of that in so many different areas.
Right.
My specialty happens to be women and money. And what I have come to understand more and more is it's this high function codependence, which I'll define in a second, that it works really, really well to keep money out of the hands of women, which is the opposite of my motto, right? My motto is I put more money in the hands of women, right? Like that's what we're here to do. Like, let's get more money, because my big why here, guys, because everybody talks about it, right? Is that, if we look at the state of the world, and as we're recording this, right, we have a war going on that a lot of people are aware of, in Ukraine. And one of the things I think that's so remarkable, right, is we can drop a bomb within inches of where we want it, right? Within inches of where we want it. But somehow we can't get food, medicine, and water to where it belongs.
Right.
Now,
Thank
you
you.
tell me if we had women in charge, that would still be the case, because we wouldn't drop bombs on other people's children. We would drop food, water, and medicine on other people's children, right? And that is my big why. Like, that is why I'm like, no. This most powerful tool we have access to right now needs to be in the hands of women for very serious reasons. You want shoes and bags? Knock yourself out. I'm fine. That's great. That's somebody's artwork. They're gorgeous. Go. Absolutely. And there is something much bigger at stake here that is so profound and so important that if we don't start getting a handle on these invisible conversations that have taken over our lives, things are going to continue the way they've been going, with the same people having the same money and things not moving.
I think about that. First of all, gives me chills when you say that, Sarah, because I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about environmental wellness, and I think about our planet, and I think about people like Greta Thunberg, and like these young women that are coming up, like that are affecting change. And imagine if she had all the money in the world.
Right.
Like, that's powerful.
Because the people dropping the bombs right now have all the money in the world. Sorry, Shannon. Yeah.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're invited here to be a guest. So however you choose to use the platform, and it's interesting when I think about dimensional wellness, I talk about trading the death rate for dimensional wellness. And so I think that falls in line. It's like the Hunger Games. Of course, we would drop food and medicine and Shalo Glow and all, and that's my shea butter company, Sarah, and all this stuff, to heal people and take care of them. But what I've been thinking about recently is still on my mind, this Playboy special on Netflix. And basically in the way it was explained, right, the girls were at the house, and because the living expenses were taken care of, you get $1,000 a week. Men and women would jump on that if they had the opportunity, so if more women had money in their hands, not only would other people be better, but those individuals would be better, those women would be better, and not have to put themselves in certain situations, right? But then their families would be better, and not just the kids and the people that need help, but what about sick relatives and quality of life and breaks when you have a child and all these things where the wages and the way that it's been is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. And I think, that's actually a really great example, by the way, Shannon, of how high functioning codependence happens.
Exactly.
In that whole Playboy world, right? So it's so funny when I'm speaking and I go, by the way, let's talk about high functioning codependence. Everybody's like, that's me. I'm like, I haven't even defined it yet. But there's something about like the name. Everyone's like, yes, I can feel it. And I'm like, okay, but let's define it. And yes, you're probably right. It is you. But so there's a joke that like a woman's brain is like a browser with 85 tabs open, right? We're like, da, 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 da. I don't have my phone here, but it's like, yeah, can you pick up chicken for dinner? Yeah. Did you get that email? Yeah, no, I got that going. Great. Yeah, no, I don't want that. Yes. Right. And that's just what we do because it's Tuesday, right? That's just what it looks like. Not to mention all of the invisible work that we do on the daily basis that makes the world function. Okay. But everybody's very happy we're doing and freak out when it stops, but it's unpaid invisible work, right? Amazing. So this starts when we're very young. And it's, stop crying. Don't cry. Where's my pretty girl? You're so pretty when you smile. And that's where it starts. Now, boys have a different version of this, which is brutal, right? And it's like the slap on the face. Stop crying, her boy, right? Either way, the message is your emotions are making me uncomfortable, so stop having them. And we learn real quick. Okay, right? And then you grow up and you hear women talking about other women being selfless. Oh, she's so selfless. God, she's just amazing. And we need to really watch that, because what we're saying is, though, that woman has no self. Isn't she great? She has completely drained any need of her own. She doesn't exist in that shell, but she looks great and she makes sure no one else is uncomfortable. That is high functioning codependence, because we can. We can run a company, look great, have all the invisible work done, get the marketing campaigns out, make all the dollars, get home, get the laundry done while everyone else is watching TV, and make sure everyone's okay, right? Like that, we can. And that's the high functioning piece. We can. And the codependence piece comes in because we're rewarded for it. Amazing. And we see this. One of my favorite examples to women who have children is the lunches at school, right? If we support local restaurants. There's no kitchen in any of our public schools. They get like lunch delivered. It's adorable, right? Great. But someone has to be there to dole it out, right? Give it to the kids. What'd you order? You got 2 chicken fingers and you got a pie, like whatever. There will be women who are there, I kid you not, 3 to 5 days a week doing this, right? No one says a word. A dad walks in and it's like the seas parted. I mean, it is like, oh my God, he's so amazing. And I'm like, she's been here every day for 3 months. Not one word. That's the stuff I'm talking about that we're swimming in. It's like someone needs to start going, Susie's been here every day for 3 months. He walked in for 20 minutes in a suit and you're going to act like, no, he's a parent. She's a parent. We talk about parents. And I think that's just one example of 100 billion we could all think of, right? But I love that one because I don't know a mom who's not like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Like, I've had that moment. Yeah. And it's, who is it? It's the other women. So we need to support each other in breaking this cycle. Because you asked me, how do we break through this? What we're doing is rewarding women for invisible, unpaid work. Stay there. It helps society function really well. Just look pretty while you do it. Thanks. And that's the thing we want to break. You want to go do lunches. That's freaking amazing. But recognize that's time you're giving up to be with your children. And that's fantastic. But let's talk about it. Let's say, what'd you do with your day? I made sure my kid got fed. I made sure I knew their friends. I watched who they were with because I want to make sure they're feeling healthy and strong and supported. That's a job. Right?
Yes,
and so when you talk about it as a job, she's not selfless.
Yeah.
Freaking job. And she's choosing to actively do it. And she's not doing something else so she can be there. That's amazing. Let's talk about that. And that's the kind of conversation I want women to start having with each other, in addition to, why are we not talking about money? And I don't mean that in like we're bad and wrong, but one of the ways we keep it out of our hands is we pretend like it's not a problem. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I get paid $1,000 a week to have people take naked pictures of me and have sex with me whenever they feel. I'm fine. It's great. Everything's fine.
Right.
Like that attitude, and that is also high functioning codependence, right? Because everyone else is comfortable. There's no self.
Right.
And that gets rewarded. So anytime we see it, it takes a lot of forms, you guys. So anytime we see it, we really want to sit down and talk about it and be like, I'm happy to do this, or I was happy when I started, it's not working anymore, or I never wanted to do this and we have a problem. And that all of those are okay, and that we have room to support each other through that and be there for each other, so we can start to crack this open and recognize we need to replenish, to recognize it's okay for us to say things that might make other people uncomfortable because we need something. That holds just as much weight as what somebody else needs, and that other people's needs aren't more important than ours. And that if we allow this to continue, we are actively removing money from each other's hands. And I truly believe that.
So many good things. So many good things you just said, and especially like the part that I want to go a little bit deeper in is I don't want to say this because it might make you uncomfortable, right? That might be a want. This 42-year-old man doesn't need you to make his sandwich. It's not a
Right.
need, right? I'm not talking about relationship dynamics, however you choose to serve each other. That's one thing, but that's not a need. But if your needs are not being met, then the way I've tried to operate in a healthy way, as we talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness, now you're going to have to be upset because I have to talk about my need. Right. That's not an option for me not to bring it up. So now we're going to have a conversation. Right. But I want to also give space to the people who have said something, because that's what we see in the water that we've been in, right? People ask for help, and then how are they received? And I think that we're taught, like you said, to not ask for help. So what does that look like as we break the myths down
Yeah.
and the way that we think about it down?
Yeah. I think the attacks are amazing, right? It really is fascinating what can happen when someone starts to break what people find are comfortable, what starts to happen. And just, I love the way that you worded that, Shannon, because it's about holding space for it,
Yeah.
because it's going to happen, right? And we need to recognize that too. Like, oop, just rocked the boat. There's going to be a backlash. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be back. There's going to be a backlash to what I'm about to do. Can you, my friend, support me through this? This is going to get rough.
Yeah.
Even if it's a tiny conversation. I mean, we have text codes with many of my friends. It's like, I'm out or whatever, like on the knees, like all the things of all the different ways we feel when it's time to start expressing or just having a bad day. Those things, we need each other so much. Because I really believe this is a conversation that only other women can truly understand at this level. And to watch that it usually comes from other women before it even comes from the person who's been uncomfortable. That's tough. That's really tough.
It is,
Yeah.
I think to your point, it's so true. One of the things that we talk about in Women Connecting Wisdom, we talk about it in Manifesting Mondays, is collaboration over competition. And when we produced this first book, people were like, wait, you had how many authors? And everybody got along and everybody, because they expect women to be that way with each other. And we have these open conversations and be like, yeah, no, it's okay. There's room for all of us. And let's get paid while we do it. I mean,
Yeah.
these very things that we're talking about, Sarah, because, one of the things with our first collaboration book that we didn't realize is in most collaboration books, authors don't get paid.
It's
The
true.
lead authors get paid.
Yes.
Well, we were like, no, that's
No.
not our model. So
Yeah.
we had our first royalty day. Was it 2 weeks ago, Shannon?
It was on the 15th. So
Right.
yes.
And so we had this celebration, we had this party. Now, to be fair, everybody got royalties that would probably buy them about a cup of coffee. But it was from like the first 2 days of sales when we had our Amazon bestseller for 99 cents. And we were like, we all got paid.
Yeah.
And it's the beginning and it's the opening.
Right.
But we were like, what do you mean everybody who wrote and produced their work? And yeah, it was fascinating. It was
And
fascinating to
Yeah.
us that
and I
that was
I'm
the
sorry.
model.
Yeah, and we specifically said that, and I know you said it, Christine, but I want to go a little bit deeper, right? Because why? Every day, every week or month, quarter, we're going to be talking to the ladies about talk about the book. We're having an event, right? Share it, all this stuff. But we weren't going to ask you to do something and continue to put your time in, continue to put in action. And we knew that we were making money and you were not making money off those sales. If you put in action, we want something to be coming back, right? Even if it's collaborations, we barter and we make things creative as entrepreneurs. But
Mhm.
if we're making money, no matter how much it is, we're going to split it. And we did. We sold almost 500 books in that first quarter.
So great. You
Yeah,
guys,
we had a good
congrats
time.
on that, by the way.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to take, these are the conversations that'll break it. I mean,
Right.
Christine, back to your original question, like, how do we break this? This is how we do it. It's in action consistently and taking a very intentional, focused look at money and the relationship we all have. And also the expectations we have too. I think one of the biggest sources of human suffering is unmet expectations,
Mm.
right? Because we don't speak about what we expect or even what we hope for anymore. Because it's embarrassing, right? Or the other thing I hear is people are like, I'm so embarrassed. People are going to think I'm dumb. There's only 5 people following me. I'm like, how do you think everybody starts? People don't come out of the womb with 8,000 followers. That's not what happens, people. And then my other favorite question to ask there is, how many people do you actually need to work with every year to make your financial goals? I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's 80. If I work with 80 humans in a year, I'm great, right? That's a 7-figure business. Like, come on, man. I'll do that all day, every day. That makes me so happy, right? So it's like you really want to just sit back, just breathe a little bit, look at everything. Like, let's talk about this. And as soon as you start to get numbers down, as soon as you start to get real, all those expectations don't seem so crazy, but we
Right.
don't talk about it. And so I
Mm.
love that you guys did that. That's really great.
And I think it's always important to balance it, right? Because sometimes, and we were speaking about this with one of the volume 2 authors before the call, is it a wound or is it a scar?
Mm.
Right? Sometimes maybe you could talk about it, but sometimes it's not ready to share yet. So that's what I love about what you said, Sarah. You have your group and we have codes and we know what these words mean, so that means that's your safety net. And you might be able to share those ideas that for example, we were talking about the first book, we had somebody do like a 1-star rating or something. We're like, who is this person? And you might not want to put it out there to let somebody mess up or however you feel about that.
Yeah.
So I think there is like the inner circle that you share stuff with so they can hold you accountable for starting and continuing and growing. And then everybody else is like, hey, here's this finished product or what I'm about to do next week.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to remember about this, I have found this to be universally true. I'm happy if someone says, no, Sarah Walton, that's incorrect. I found somebody who didn't do that. But
Yeah.
universally, like usually when someone is critiquing you, who's not a coach or someone who's like really working to help you craft something and create something and push you forward, but like nasty, we're talking
Yeah.
like, what we all know, we've all been,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We've all been on social media.
Yeah, that guy, right?
Yes.
That person is always behind you on the path.
Mhm.
That person is never in front of you on the path, because the person in front of you on the path is so effing stoked for your success.
Right.
Even if they don't love it or they're like, that is so amazing. They don't have to agree with you, but they'll be like, oh my God, that's such a great phase of life. It's always someone behind you. And knowing that is like so comforting, because it's like, oh, it's Joe Schmo who's like, let me pull her back. Like, it's like, that's not someone whose opinion I would actually go to about this thing. Right. If you're looking for support on fitness, you wouldn't go to somebody who's never been in a gym and worry about what they think, because they don't know. Right. If you've got a cough, you don't go to the gardener. You go and you talk to the doctor or your wellness expert, and you're like, what is like, you got to look at whose opinion actually matters, along with the facts that you really don't need that many people to follow you or to like you, or all those things that we look for these days for you to be really, really successful. And that is an artificial marker that so many people hang on to, or that negative thing, or the 1 star. And it's like just so comforting to go to your group of people, like you guys are saying, and be like, nasty, help, like make me feel better. Or can you guys read my comments for a couple of days? I can't even look. Like to have people support you that way. It's so important.
I love that. So we talked a little bit about going back to the basics, right? Sarah, I know you talk about abundance, and I feel like those are different parts of the spectrum. What do you feel like are the biggest challenges that you run into trying to take women from, I don't even talk about money, but I need help, to abundance and I'm ready to learn how to sell stuff?
Yeah. Oh my, well, it's all healing. I mean, I hate that answer is that simple, but it really is that simple. It's about healing, because our natural state, and I truly believe this, I've done so much for you guys, I was raised so poor. Like when we are talking poor, we are talking, I had a half a loaf of bread and a jar of honey in the pantry, and my mom had made the bread from scratch. Like that's all there was. Like I am talking like no dollars. Right. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about it from a space of someone who gets that word. Like, I'm not like, well, if you could just see how I see, it's like, dude, no, I got it. Right. Like you're like, Sarah, that's great. You want to talk about abundance. Can you pay my electric bill? Like, I totally get that. And there are real things in this world. And in order to pay the electric bill, it's a deep connection to self-trust, right? And confidence. And for me, confidence isn't like that cocky, obnoxious thing that you walk into a room with. Confidence is a belief in yourself that you can figure it out. That's all confidence is. And again, that goes back to self-trust. And what are women taught to do from day one? Betray themselves, right? So we have a boatload of healing to do, so that when the electric bill hits, this is my favorite exercise for everyone listening, just bear with me. And if you're driving, please keep your eyes on the road. But it's this idea that you look around everything around you right this minute, like anything around you right now. Like I can see my phone, I can see my computer, I got a mic, I got lights, I got some books, got a painting I love back there, right? So we have all these, I have angel cards on my desk too. So all these things we love, right? If you think about it for a hot second, every single thing that you can see right now is something somebody created and then you paid money for. right? Everything. There's not one thing in the world, right, that you have in your possession right now that someone can create out of thin air. Did not exist. They created it and you paid money for it. Well, wait a second. That means money's infinite. You have an idea, you can make money. I don't even shut my mouth wide open. I don't even know what else to say after that, right? Like there is nothing you can't create and sell. Nothing. I just was like doing my son's closet. He had all these soccer jerseys. I'm like, what in the actual hell? I can't throw these out. What am I found this amazing woman in Colorado who I sent her all of the jerseys. She made the most gorgeous quilt I've ever seen. He died. And I'm like, holy shit. Sorry, I swore.
That's
She
okay.
made that out of thin air. And I
Right.
paid her for it. And so that electric bill comes in, you go inside
Yeah.
and you go, ooh, I'm going to figure it out.
Mm.
And if you let your brain work on that, it will,
Mhm.
right? I love that. If it's like, what if this is the easiest bill for me to pay ever? What if you start doing that and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that dude called me to do a painting 3 weeks ago and I forgot, or to write that book, or to take that photograph, or oh my God, hey, that guy never paid his invoice. Pick a thing. It will happen because you
Right.
find it. We are so powerful, and it all lies in our ability to master language and to master our emotions in that moment. And the quality of your life is directly related to the quality of your emotions.
Mm.
So if you are walking around going, I suck, I'm so stupid, I'm never gonna make it, that is one way to live your life. And now put yourself in the other side and pretend
Right.
for a hot second with me. You just won the lottery. Just pretend.
Right.
Just feel it. Just feel, go, how different did your life just become? Right? Like it just, all it did is you change the quality of your emotion. And the
Right.
second you do that, you see things completely differently. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden the ideas are there. And all of a sudden the truth of what I said when I said money is infinite, you can always generate more money. People start to go, is that real?
Mhm.
And the way the system's set up, it doesn't feel that way, right? The way the system's set up is go get your job. Here's your finite paycheck. Bye-bye. Right. And you go, oh crap, I only have this much. And I got to do retirement. I got to do my house. I got to do the kids. I got to do the thing. Shit, there's not enough. Which, by the way, is myth number 2. There's not enough. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. What's gonna? And you're born into that. You are born into hearing your parents go, shit, how are we gonna do college? Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen with it? Oh you're born into that. You hear it, and when you don't hear it, watch TV, because there you'll hear it again. And everybody who's wealthy is a jerk, right? Like just watch it. Just watch. You're like, oh, there it is again. There it is again. There's not enough. There's not enough. But you know what's messed up about that myth? Is it's totally contradictory to the second one, which is more is better. And you're like, wait a minute. There's not enough, but more is better. Okay, so now I got to start stealing stuff from people, right? Or I got to stop being a jerk. And if you guys want to go search on YouTube, there's a really funny bit. I don't know what happened to me. I was at a conference. I was leading at a conference. I lost my mind. I did the funniest thing. It was totally impromptu. I had on sneakers and I started running around the stage. I was like, you guys ever seen that stupid game we teach kids, musical chairs? Where you take away a chair, you're literally teaching them there's not enough. Oh, and by the way, knock your best friend out of the way. Get it. You better get yours.
I'm getting my chair. That's how I play.
You see? But you're taught because we
Yeah.
take one away. Don't be the idiot who's out in the cold, you dumb kids. Like and they're like, okay. You're like, knock him out of the. What the heck are we doing? There's more than enough. And for anybody who's having that experience, sorry, I get excited. For anyone who's having the experience that there's not enough, I want you to go to an amusement park or your local park or the school and look in a garbage can. And you tell me there's not enough. Oh, but there's kids starving. There's no water. How many full water bottles do you see in the garbage? How much food do you see in the garbage? There's enough. There's enough. Just like there's enough money, and money's infinite. But what we're taught is you get a paycheck and then that's it.
And so that's what I've been working on, right? I read this book, Why A Students Work for C Students by Robert Kiyosaki. And I love that book. Have you heard that book?
Yeah, love it.
And so
Love it.
as an honor student, I'm like, wait a minute, what is
Like,
going on? Right. And so instead of getting a job, how much money do I need to make? I love the question that you asked. Asking the right questions is important, right? How many people do I need to work with this year? Not even how many subscriptions do I want. It doesn't have to be all these different things. Just total, how many projects do I need so that I know when I reach 50, I'm on to next year or the next year or wherever we're at, or I can stop. And then the rest of the time is for whatever I want to use it for. I like that.
So cool. Is it? I mean, what a shift.
Yeah.
And all it takes is a conversation. And
Mm,
that's what's so cool. So I just want to be responsible and make sure I covered the 3 myths because we did it a little bit differently because I get
Right.
excited. So myth number 1 is that there's not enough. Myth number 2 is that more is better. And myth number 3 is that is just the way it is. So now it's all going to stay the same. And one of the questions I really like to ask, because you know I'm about deconstructing things, is but who's benefiting from that? And that's where we go back to literally any system that was built prior to 1965, 1970 was built for white men. And
Yes.
again, not to dig or like make everybody crazy, but they
but
had the power. So
we're
they built
talking
stuff
about
that worked
facts.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, well, of course they did, right? Well,
Mhm.
duh. But then the rest of us are trying to fit into it. It doesn't work. But that I can't, you know, and one of my favorite, I saw this meme like 6 months ago. I was like, I love this person. I wish I could remember who I saw it. It was in a story or something on Instagram where she said, you know, I have this awesome mentor and he's trying to teach me how to write a book, like while I have my full-time job, which is so great. And he said I had to work 3 hours in the morning before I go to work and 3 hours when I come home after work. And that's when I realized he had a wife.
Yep.
I died.
Right.
I died.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, like this is the best, right? So it's like this idea that we have to start doing this. And I was actually on a different podcast a couple of weeks ago with
Yeah.
a male host. He was so generous and gracious,
Yeah.
but I just had to sit down. I was like, dude, who made your breakfast today? Where'd your breakfast come from today? He's like, oh, well, it just kind of showed up on my desk. I'm like, yeah, amazing, right? I said,
Beautiful.
where'd your clothes come from? And he was like, I literally, he was like, I think my brain stopped working, right? Because there's so much that's just taken advantage, like
Mhm.
not taken advantage, sorry, that's taken for granted.
Right.
And so now and that's the same on our end too, right? We take for granted we're just supposed to do that because we always have. So it's like this thing, like we don't need to make anybody wrong. We don't need to make anybody bad, but we need to talk about it. Like we need to talk about what's working, what's not working, because this is not just the way it is. This is just the
Right.
way it's been.
I think that's so true, Sarah. And what you said earlier about getting ready for a little backlash or getting ready for the boat to be rocked, because I grew up where my grandmother was a stay-at-home grandmother. And my papa was in World War II and he worked and she stayed at home and took care of the kids and food was on the table. Like I was raised seeing that system, right? And I will never forget, I was newly married and I was at my grandmother's house and Joe had come home from work or something and she said, "Are you gonna get up and get him some food?" And I go, "Nanny, he's got 2 feet." And she was like, "What? What?"
Yeah.
And there's still so many things that I fell into as a young wife and a young mother that I do that. I take that on. I do that literally to the point that I made myself sick,
Yeah.
where full time work, full time being a super mom, running, like, and had a health crisis to realize, oh, wow, like we have to have these discussions because it is taking women out. Like, it is, especially like, one of my first book is about caregivers, and we talk about how caregivers often die before the person they're taking care of
Yes. It's
because
very
they're
common.
they're so, that they lose themselves, just like you were saying.
Yes.
And I will tell you, as somebody who is now trying to be an empty nester, not quite there yet, but trying to be an empty nester, doing, like, living my best life, having fun and living and traveling, I still get a little pushback
Mm,
because
mm.
our I live with a really cool group of people. I mean, I just have to give a shout out to Joe because he's probably going to listen to this. Cool group of people. My kids are cool, and there's so many unspoken societal rules about where we're supposed to be as women, what we're supposed to be doing, when we're showing up. And when one of those gets, you're like, "Oh, no, I'm actually going to go over here and do this. I'll see y'all in a couple of days." there is some there is some waves and boat rocking, but who's going to take care of and name one of the 100 things we take care of that are unseen, unspoken labor,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
The invisible
Because,
work that makes the world
right,
work. Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Well, even invisible in our own households. That when we
To use a
start
word.
having these conversations, that people are like, "What do you mean?" And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Sarah, you were talking about things you saw online, and one day I saw this video, and it was like, you guys did amazing at telling all these young ladies they could be whatever they wanted to be, and did horrible at preparing the men for that. And so, right? How do we fit all of it? You can do it,
Yeah.
but what about everything else? And so
Mm-hmm.
when I think about time and financial freedom, because that's really what financial freedom together is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if the beauty labor is 2.5 hours a day, because we have an author, Laurel Ann Start, that talks about that, right? So it's 2.5 hours to show up looking presentable, like you said. Then the work, the labor in the house, whether it's cooking, cleaning, chopping, prepping, whatever it is, resetting, right? Um, and then whatever else you have, depending on what the balance of the relationship is like. Between me and my young lady friends, that's what we talk about, right? How do we really have these conversations when you're past capacity? We have to
Yes.
talk about what's realistic to do. And if I'm working full time, like Christine said, and we have to do all these things, if laundry has to happen today, we're going to have to talk about what that looks like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to
especially
have
if I
that
have to go make
conversation.
money. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 And it's just been so convenient that women make less. So just stop working because it's costing us too much for you to work, right? It's a really interesting conversation for all of us to be having together, right? And I think I think it'd be remiss too not to say it's not just women. We also have our sisters of color, and
Yes.
and looking at these conversations that need to get broken down. This
Mhm.
has to start happening, and some of them are going to make me uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Some of them are going to make other people uncomfortable, and that's
Right.
okay. And really giving each other permission and supporting each other, both when we're the person who's uncomfortable and the person who's causing people to be uncomfortable, to show up as sisters and support each other. Because
Right.
I think it's going to get a little rough. And
Okay.
that's okay. I think it needs to.
Hmm.
And sometimes in order for things to move forward, we gotta break all these invisible walls, and suddenly they're visible.
Right.
Right. And then we got to clean up the messes. And it
Hmm.
might not be on all of us to clean up the messes for the first time, right? It's going to be on everybody to clean up the mess so we can all move forward. Because could you freaking imagine what it will be like when women are in charge of what we drop on other people's children? Like, come on. What a different world. But
Yeah.
it's going to take this. It's going to take this, and we're all going to have to be uncomfortable about it and
Right.
really look at how this happened, when this happened, what the history is, how do we undo it, who needs to be in the conversations, when do we need to have the conversation. And one of my favorite phrases, my students tell me a lot. They're like, I hear you. I hear you. And I'm like, your best life is usually 1 10-minute sweaty conversation away.
Mm.
mm. I
Isn't that
love
cool?
that. A
Yeah.
10-minute sweaty conversation away.
Your
I
best
would
life.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You were talking about some of those, and we've talked about it multiple times on the show, but I think just stating it for our listeners, like, what are you talking about, Sarah? Y'all, in this country, in the United States, black women make 64 cents on the dollar
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm.
white men make. Multiracial black women make 63 cents on the dollar. Hispanic women make 57 cents on the dollar. So
It's a lot.
it's not
So when
okay.
so when we talk about the 250,000 in a lifetime for just looking a certain way, and
Yeah.
then the $311,000 that we were talking about last week for each child,
Hmm.
Mm,
that's outside of personal living
Right.
expenses that
mm.
are increasing.
Right. Right. And I would be remiss if I didn't say Native American women are historically have also experienced huge wage gaps, but
Yes.
we don't have enough data on them because
Of
they've
course
been
not.
tried to be invisibilized and
Hmm.
erased.
Hmm.
So, that whole thing of unpaid, unseen, untalked about labor, and how we often get shut down when we talk about money,
That's
or
Hmm.
right.
we get shut down if we start to say, hey, this isn't. I know growing up, we would hear, oh, just be grateful for what you're given,
Isn't that
right?
convenient?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I
Isn't it?
mean, it's really amazing to watch. And this is why I just keep coming back to this. It's going to take all of us, and
Yeah.
it's going to take all of us arm in arm. right? Like we can't leave any of our sisters behind, right? And the hard part is we're going to have sisters on the other side going, but please stop rocking this boat.
Right.
And I get that, right? I got it. It's
We're
tough, but we're
rocking.
rocking. Go, Shannon,
Yes.
go. Right, but we're rocking. We're coming
Yes.
and
Oh,
rocking.
yeah.
And we're going to start rocking. Yeah.
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 And we'll teach you how to swim and
That's
dig
right.
you up
Yeah.
if we need
And
to.
we
Like,
will be there for you too.
right?
And
Yeah.
I think that's the really important piece is as we break this down and start to really live inside of there's enough,
Mhm.
it gets easier, right? Because all of a sudden we're not playing musical chairs and trying to grip, like, get I got to fight for everything I have, which I get why people have, of course. Oh my God, I get that because everyone around you was trying to take too, right? So it's like, this is going to benefit everybody if we can actually get into it.
Yeah.
And then there is no more is better. I'm over here. You're over there. That's better. This is better. I'm better. It's not necessary. And the
Right.
challenge we have against that is our brains don't like that because we like to compete, right? We like to fight. We like to have that, like, the most dangerous species on the planet, constantly killing each other and hurting other, like it's bananas what we do.
Hardwired for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so interesting to understand where I believe we're here to move past that. Like you guys talk about, all the different dimensions of wellness.
Yes.
I think this is a big one
Yeah.
for us to drop this. Like I love, forgive me, I can't remember which tribe it was, but the records being kept of the sickness in the white man's eyes for want. And it was like this foreign, like, we're going to take your land, but it's not my land. It belongs to the land. Like there was no concept of mine, give me. And that it was spoken about inside this tribe as an illness, as a mental illness that had taken over. And so I understand that and I could see that, but we're going to talk about wellness is about how do we heal that? And going back to your original question, like how do we go from like, oh my God, my electric bill to abundance? We
Right.
have to heal. We got to really look at how this happened and heal it. And the only way to do that is to tell the truth.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so,
I love that.
and I know we're coming to the end of the show. We usually talk about wisdom in action. But before I ask you about that, Sarah, I want to talk a little bit about selling,
Yeah.
right? Because I think that it surprises me the way that people feel about it. I was raised by my dad. So a lot of stuff, whether it's race, whether it's gender, I didn't get the rules. So I'm smart, I'm beautiful, we're all these things. I'm not worried about it, right? But selling, what do you see as the challenge that you see that people have with, okay, I can sell an idea, I can sell this and make the money that I need to make in X amount of time?
Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest fear usually is I don't want to be salesy. I don't even know what that means. Something different to everybody a little bit.
Okay.
It's slimy. It's the used car salesman. It's the tricking, right? It's that if you're selling, you must be kind of a jerk, right? Like
Or
the
pushy.
whole,
That
Yeah,
word
like,
that
I
gets
can
put
sell,
on
I
women
can sell.
sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, I can sell ass to an Eskimo, like that kind of nasty.
Right.
And I think people get very scared that they will have to do that in order to sell. And I think that's really the biggest block, but also conveniently women tend to feel this way, men do not, right? So once again,
Right.
right? One of my clients is a psychologist. She's amazing, right? She's written books, just incredible. And it's like this constant needling in the back of her head, but am I charging too much? And I just said, can you do me a favor? Could you just go to your male colleagues and ask them if they have that question? Not one of them, right? Interesting. So getting into action as women is understanding part of that is the design of keeping money out of our hands. And that there's no reason that you have to be slimy or mean or disconnected in order to sell. In fact, it's the opposite. The more heart-centered you are, the
That's
more
how I feel about it.
integrity you have, right? The more you love the other person. It's like, oh my God, do you need some water? Here.
Yes.
Like it's just so easy and it's so
Mhm.
natural. And my favorite is when like, someone enrolls in a 4-figure, 5-figure program and they send me a thank you note. I'm
Right.
like, what just happened? Like, it's so cool, right? But like that is because something just changed,
Yeah.
right? When a woman does that, when a woman's like, oh, I'm in, when that investment happens, what they're saying is the money's in my hands.
Mhm.
That changes everything, right? And that's just step one. So if you understand there's a transformation on the other side of a sales conversation, there's a transformation happening, not for you, by the way, for the other person. You
Right.
get that, you get excited, you get super jazzed. It's like such an act of love. And it's the opposite of everything that we've attached to that idea of like the dude in the plaid suit who's going to sell you a crappy car, right? Like
Yeah.
That's not selling. I don't know what that is, but it has nothing to do with selling.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. And I love that because I think that it's relate that it makes it easy to relate to everybody's purpose, right? Not
Mhm.
everybody's going to sell shea butter. I can get excited about it, and that's how I feel about it, right? Oh, you're Ashley, you this is what you need. The other day
Yeah.
I had one of my models and she plays football. She was telling me about this bone injury. I said, "What did you put on it?" She said, "Ice." It's just ice, and you're about to go walk around it? No, you need some shea butter. Please help the circulation, elevate it, all this stuff, right? Because that's what you need.
Mm.
But I think that anybody who's an entrepreneur and you feel like that's your passion and that's the business that you're making, somebody needs that just like somebody needs water, just like somebody needs shea butter. So I love
Mhm.
that you said it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really
Mm,
exciting. And it's just, I
yeah,
think it's just such an act of service.
definitely. I
Yeah.
definitely
When
agree.
it's right. And by
Yeah.
the way, I'm a big, like, I've had many people be like, no one's ever said no to me before. So I'm like, look, it's just not the right fit for you. I just love you. Here's where, go get my free stuff, do this, do that, like, come back to me in a year, let's talk. That's the other piece of it too, right? Is like,
Wait,
this
what do you
actually
mean?
may not be right for you. And that's okay. Like, there's no
Hmm.
problem there, and understanding that. And I think that's what I mean by integrity too, is we have to really be connected to the heart of the other person. Like
Yeah.
you said, like, only ice. Oh my goodness. Here, let's do this. Cause
Right.
let's move you to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, let's move you to the next level. Yeah.
That makes sense. So again, every week we do wisdom and action. So for financial wisdom, excuse me, for financial wellness, what are you focused on this week, Sarah?
For financial wellness this week, I think it's about, oh my gosh, there's so much, you guys. I
Yeah.
think it's about focusing on the little things for me this week. I just had
Mm,
just a sweet conversation with my daughter, and I think that's what that was just reminding me of that. Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
What about you, Christine?
Oh, I was sitting over here thinking about it. Let's see. My wisdom in action this week, I think is going to be check in.
Hmm.
I'm going to check in with my systems. I'm going to check in with myself. I'm going to check in. Um, I think that's going to be mine.
I
Love
like
that.
that.
Mm,
Yes. Mine is hashtag communication and cash flow. We have some meetings coming up, right?
love that.
Um, Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Have
yeah.
meetings with
That's
my
so
business
great.
partners, so we're gonna organize some stuff and get ready for this year.
All right, I have another one. You're
Okay,
usually the one that has two, but this one just came to me because
I'm
it's
ready for you.
punny. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
Accountability.
Mm,
I
I
love
like
it.
it.
Oh my god, that's so great.
Accountability.
We are all as entrepreneurs, it's tax season, right? So
Yeah,
everybody
Yeah.
I know is talking about getting it all together, getting it organized, let's get it done. And so that accountability is going to be my second one for financial wisdom. Like,
I like it.
Ah, I
I
right?
like
love
it.
it.
We
Be
might need to
fun.
put that on our hashtag list for financial
We
wellness.
might. Absolutely.
So good.
Absolutely. Now, Sarah, tell
Yeah.
our listeners how they can find you
Yes.
and what they may want to get engaged or connected with you with.
Sure. Yeah. So you just head on over to sarahwalton.com. We're always having a party. You can also find me on YouTube. I love, love, love YouTube. YouTube is one of my favorite just because I love video. I just find it to be such a great way to talk to people and put people at ease. So I have a couple shows. So our podcast is also video, the Game On Girlfriend podcast. So you can find that there, as well as Sarah Uncut, which heaven help us all. It's a weekly show where I turn on my camera and I don't know, stuff happens, man. It's just too much fun. But I usually cover like a real world topic. I'll be like, do you think your salesy and gross? Like, or something like that. And we'll dive in. But it's so much fun. And then the Game On Girlfriend podcast as well. You can find anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Well, we will put all that in our show notes. This has
Yes.
been such a delightful conversation. I was searching you on YouTube because I want to connect our listeners right to that one you were talking about.
Mm.
Is the one where you were running around the stage freaking out that there's not enough? Is that the one? Okay, got you. All right. I got you.
So much
So,
fun.
for our
Yeah.
listeners' enjoyment and connection, we will make sure that's in our show notes. And this has
Yes.
been so, I feel like we could just talk to you forever. Like,
We
we may
could.
have to have you come back, Sarah, for
Yeah.
further
I'm in it.
conversations
I
because
Mhm.
am
this has
down.
been delightful. So, thank
All
you
right, you
so
Thank you
much.
so
guys.
much.
Oh my gosh, that was ridiculously fun. I knew it was going to be. I knew it was
Yes.
going to be awesome.
No, I love
So,
talking about putting more money in women's hands. It's
right?
important.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just her joy and energy and love for
Yeah.
what she does, right?
Yeah.
That is
Absolutely.
financial wellness.
Mm.
Like, you could tell she's on purpose, she's doing her thing, and
Yeah.
having a ball while she does it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
Well, my friend, we are actually out of time. We
On to episode 106.
right. Do you have
Yes.
anything you want to add before we jump
Oh,
out of here?
yes, I do. If you ladies know that you want to dive a little bit deeper, we talked a lot about our compilation books, and we are currently doing volume two. So if you're interested in being an author, we are having a class next Wednesday from 6:15 to 7:15 on the community, the Women Connected in Wisdom community. So come join us, learn about being an Amazon bestseller and the model that we're building at Connected in Wisdom Press.
Right? Come be
Yes.
a part of Royalty Days.
Ooh, yes.
Royalty
I love it.
Days.
I'm like, we need a
Right?
crown. I was doing the graphic the other day. I'm like, I don't know how to do
Right?
this, but yeah.
Well, you know what we also need is some of those fun wands that like
Mm,
make that sound that like go.
I like that.
We
That's a
need
good
to do
idea.
all kinds of fun. That would be ridiculous. So
That would be nice.
I love it.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies, for listening to episode 105 again on financial wellness. We'll be back next week live at 5. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.